permit me to acknowledge Mrs. Gloria Richards Johnson, who is the Project Director of the Judicial Reform and Institutional Strengthening Project, which we shorten to say Jurist. I'd also like to acknowledge the Chief Magistrate, the Director of the Family Court, Senior Magistrates, and Magistrates of the District Courts and of the Family Court. Also with us are support personnel from the Jurist Project, Ms. Anika Gray, who is Project Coordinator, Regional Project Coordinator, and Gender Specialist, and Ms. Alison Ali, who is the Communication Specialist for the project. And of course, I acknowledge the members of the media. Today, the Judiciary of Belize is pleased to collaborate and partner with the Jurist Project and UN Women in mounting this workshop, which is aimed at gender sensitization as it affects the judicial function. As the project director will no doubt tell you in some detail, the ultimate goal of the Jurist Project is to develop a judicial system that is more responsive to the needs of women, men, youth, business, and the poor. Of necessity, this outcome requires that one of the cross-cutting themes of the project should be gender. In order to appreciate how fundamental the training to be delivered today is, I want to draw your attention to your role and function as judicial officers. Let me take you back to the first step you took when you became a judicial officer. That is, the oath of allegiance and office that you subscribe to, as set out in Schedule 3 of the Constitution. Each of you swore or affirmed that you would impartially discharge your duties as a magistrate and do right to all manner of people without fear or favor, affection, or ill will. This principle of impartiality has been internationally accepted as one of the basic values and tenets that are espoused by judicial officers universally. In fact, in the Bangalore Principles of Judicial Conduct that were promulgated in 2002, following upon the Latimer House principles that were set out by the Commonwealth sometime before, that principle is included. Also, it's included in our Code of Judicial Conduct and Etiquette, which all of you have voluntarily subscribed to, whether you be a judge or whether you be a magistrate. Impartiality contemplates the treatment of all parties in judicial matters equally, and that's to put it in very broad terms. More specifically, it is expected that the adjudication would be performed without bias, favor, or prejudice. Experience has taught us that that is very easy to state, but very difficult to put into practice. Each of us is a product of our upbringing, the environment in which we live, the people who have influenced us, and the events that we have experienced throughout our lives. In order to confront the resulting inbred biases and prejudices, whether they be good or bad, it becomes necessary for each of us to be introspective and to be honest with ourselves. We must first accept that our imperfect selves harbor inclinations and perhaps leanings that are stereotypical of our societal perceptions. Often than not, to embark upon this process makes us uncomfortable. But be that as it may, the main object of today's workshop is to make each of you a better judicial officer, regardless of how long you've been sitting on the bench. The trainers will aim to introduce you to the need for gender-sensitive adjudication. As you will be informed, this is but part one of a two-part program. It's going to culminate in the practical implementation of tools for gender-sensitive adjudication. To that end, ahead of the part two of the program, which is slated for December 11th and 12th for the magistrates, there will be the launch and publication of a gender equality protocol. It's completed and it's designed specifically for Belize. This will serve as a valuable reference and a guide to supplement the sensitization that you will be exposed to today and in Part 2 in December. It bears repeating that judicial education is a necessary obligation on the part of the judiciary for building and strengthening capacity to deliver justice. Each case is just important as the next, however big, however small, however complex, or however seemingly simple. The strength of the judiciary lies in its capacity to deliver justice according to the law, competently and with impartiality, integrity, and propriety. Remember that at all times, there is a statement that appears in the Latimer House Principles on Judicial Independence, and I like to quote it when I induct magistrates. An independent, impartial, honest, and competent judiciary is integral to upholding the rule of law, engendering public confidence, and dispensing justice. I think all of you know by now that I place a very high emphasis on the engendering of public confidence. I emphasize this engendering of public trust and confidence as part of the training that you're going to be delivered to you today. The target is that you will be equipped with skills to impart gender justice. As an aside, the word gender has assumed some importance this week. It was very interesting to hear on the media the reports of the arguments that took place earlier this week in the Court of Appeal, where arguments surrounded the difference between the word sex and the word gender. One aspect of the argument was that sex addresses biological functions and gender addresses cultural objectives. Anyway, let's await the Court of Appeal's opinion on the matter. In advance, I'd like to thank the government and people of Canada for their willingness to share their resources with Belize and the Caribbean region through the Juris Project. By this project, we seek to re-engineer our court function and processes so that we can meet the demands of our citizens in a modern and a developmentally challenging world. More specifically, I also like to thank the Juris Project personnel, the director who is here with us, and the two supporting officers. Also like to thank UN Women. And the hidden partner in this is the Caribbean Association of Judicial Officers. And I'd like to thank them all for their valuable contributions in making this training initiative a reality. Just to put a plug for Caribbean Association of Judicial Officers, CAJO, their biennial conference is going to be held in Belize in October, November 2019. So I put you all on notice that you will all be attending and playing host to judicial officers, perhaps numbering nearly 200 coming from the rest of the Caribbean. To the trainers, two of whom are present, Justice Griffith and Senior Magistrate Arana, I say thank you. I'd also like to thank Justice Moore, who's going to be here at some stage today. Thank you for giving of your time and talents gratuitously. And that is very important considering that each of you have your own burdensome responsibilities in your day-to-day functions. So with these brief remarks, I urge your worships all to make the most of this opportunity to expand your capabilities as magistrates. At the end of this session, we expect that judges and magistrates will be better at what they do. At the end of the day, you're umpires. Some of you who are soccer fans may prefer referees. But in order to be a good umpire or referee, you can't favor one particular team. So therefore, remember that the symbol of justice is portrayed most universally as a blindfolded goddess. And that is perhaps the imagery that I can leave with you as I close my remarks. Thank you very much for your attention.